Nothing contained in this podcast should be considered a substitute for professional medical advice. This content does not represent our respective employers and is purely the opinion of the podcast hosts. We are not your personal medical providers. Sorry, friends. So, if you have concerns or are seeking a diagnosis or treatment, please seek individual advice from a healthcare provider in your area. We are not liable for any risks associated with acting upon the information contained in this podcast. This is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only, so enjoy the ride.
Please drink responsibly and in moderation. Before drinking, please be sure to be of the legal drinking age for your country. We do not encourage the misuse of alcohol.
Welcome to Medical Media Mixer, the perfect cocktail. I'm Nicole Peniston, psychologist.
And I'm Tara Prisco, physician assistant. And we are recording from a snowy New Jersey, take 2 on the day of the blizzard.
Yeah, I'm feeling really stir crazy because I was home sick on Thursday of last week. Then I always work from home on Fridays.
Yeah.
Saturday, I briefly went to lunch with Deb to the Ugly Dumpling, which was okay.
Are you a dumpling fan?
I am.
Okay.
The Ugly Dumpling was okay. I've had better dumplings other places.
Yeah. So there's one that opened near us, and I tried it once, and we're like, we have a better place a few miles down the road, Bao. Their dumplings are better.
Yes, they have good dumplings.
And then there's also Shanghai Bun, which is like a very authentic place. And sometimes they're open and sometimes they're not. Because they're so authentic, they don't really give a crap. And they're like the OG. But Bao is very good. They have a few locations, not a lot. Yeah.
They used to have one in the mall by work, but they closed. And I was very sad about that. There's one by my mom's house, though.
Yeah, Kenilworth, right?
Yeah, but I know everybody is like probably cringing because they're essentially fast food dumplings, but they're good.
Yeah.
It's a chain, so they're fast food, but I like them. They're good.
Yeah. My kids love boba, so boba tea and dumplings, that's a go-to.
I don't like the tapioca pearls, but I like
bursting.
Yes.
So good. The bursting with that little sour, fruity pop.
The tapioca ones are just like eating eyeballs. I can't eat eyeballs.
They do have like some special extra sugary brown sugar ones that are a little bit better.
No. Actually, you know what? I've never had the brown sugar one, so I can't say no to that.
Yeah, it's like a little more to it. Like not just texture, a little flavor, but the bursting ones I can see, the appeal for sure. We actually, of course, my husband, he gets obsessed with the random things. So I bought him like a bunch of like make it home boba kits for a little while. And he was obsessed doing it like every day. And then that fell off. And then he was into ramen. And so I gave him a bunch of stuff with like the dried toppings, like make your own. And that fell off. And, we'll be on to some other thing at some point.
It happens. It's how we all are. But yeah, so that was the only time I've been out of my house in the last 5 days. And now I am working from home tomorrow. And I'm starting to question my sanity.
Yeah, I was off of work Friday because oldest child had surgery on her foot for growth plate fracture. Yay, gymnastics. And then Saturday, normal, bringing other child to activities, picking up anything we needed last minute. And then Sunday... Were we home all day Sunday? I think we were. I don't recall anything of interest and just preparing for the storm. And then Monday, of course, we were home today. And then tomorrow, kids have no school. Supposedly my work is open according to the texts that are happening. We will see if my street is plowed because I have not heard the plow yet. And we have 12 to 16 inches in the middle of my street.
May the odds be ever in your favor.
I mean, my driveway is crisp clear. I just can't get out of the street. What am I to do?
I tried, speaking of the odds being ever in your favor, I tried watching The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I did read it, but I tried watching the movie. I couldn't do it.
No, I watched it.
I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
I wanted to like it.
I liked the book a lot.
Yes, no, I liked the book.
The book was like probably one of my favorites in the series, like for sure.
Yeah. I have to read the newest one.
Yeah. So hold on. I gotta think of all the names.
Ballad of Songbird and Snakes is the one about President Snow.
Right.
His origin story.
The one with Hamish.
Yes. That one I have not read yet.
No, that's the one that's my most favorite.
That's what I was going to say, really?
Right. My brain was switching the names.
That's what I figured.
The one with Hamish was pretty much my favorite. Yeah, Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes, the movie, I could see it was a little It was all right.
I think poor Rachel Ziegler has gotten so much hate. Mm-hmm. I never was like in love with her, but I never like hated her. So I think like part of it was just like, meh, you're meh. And then much like I felt in the book, I felt like they didn't give enough connection. So like, I remember Tigress was someone I should know.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, wait, how is she related to And then, okay, she's his cousin, but then like, why do they not know each other in the future?
Yeah.
Like there were a
Yeah.
lot of like, kind of like vaguely loose ends
Yeah.
that were too confusing.
Yeah.
And then if I'm remembering correctly, because I didn't watch the whole movie and I read the book when it first came out, so that was forever ago, Lenny Kravitz isn't in this one.
No, because this is too far back.
I want his backstory. I want to know everything about him.
Is he in the one with him?
I feel like you said he's in the one with
Yeah,
Hamish.
Cinna is in that one as a young... It's the book. The movie's not out yet, right? Yeah.
No, movie's not
out. The book, Cinna, the character's there. So we'll see. I don't know if it'll be played by him because it'll be a younger him.
It's okay.
So
we can CGI it, and it should still be Woody Harrelson. Or it could be Matthew McConaughey if we want to go a little bit younger.
They're kind of like the same person at this point.
Well, did you know how they may actually be related?
Yes, I did see that.
Which is insane to me because they do seem related.
Like the same person. I also throw sometimes Patrick Dempsey gets in that mix up.
On the end of it,
They have like a similar... There's a commercial now, I think, that two of them are in. That was like a Super Bowl commercial?
Yes.
I don't know.
With Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson are in it. Yes.
Yeah. But aren't they making fun of Dempsey because he's an Eagles fan or something?
I don't know.
I'm mixing up my commercials. But anyway, I don't know. I just kind of group all of these people as like very similar blondish men of a certain age. But like I know them individually. But like sometimes I especially McConaughey and Harrelson, I overlap like who is what role and what thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Also, speaking of Patrick Dempsey, I've not yet watched it, but he is in a new show where he plays an assassin nearing retirement who has dementia.
Okay.
And so now he's apparently forgetting why he needs to kill people. I don't know. That's what I saw in the commercial, and I was like, I'm intrigued, but I'm also confused and scared.
Okay. Don't know.
And then I'm also like, wow, is Patrick Dempsey old enough to have dementia?
No. I mean, early, like very early.
I mean, I think that's the plot, is that he has like early onset something.
Yeah.
And he's trying to like finish the job before he forgets who he is or something. It's a stretch. I want to know what it was like in the writer's room when somebody was pitching this idea.
Like, I have the best idea.
Because everybody was on board, clearly.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they're running out of ideas. And then recycling things, and then, I don't know.
It's intriguing. I don't know. Assassin with dementia is confusing.
I think as far as TV shows go, because there's such a saturation, because there's so many streaming services and independent things making it, whereas networks were networks. You had the major networks, you had your cable networks, and that was it. But now it's straight to Netflix, straight to Hulu, straight to this, plus you still have the networks, plus you have the paid ones, the extra ones, the Showtimes and HBOs and whatever, Cinemaxy things.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's such a saturation that we're running out of ideas. I do like taking books, though, at least, and them doing things from books, because I can get on board
if they're well done.
Oh, believe me. I'm that person who's watching the movie like, that wasn't in the book, or that's wrong.
And, sometimes there is something to be said about reading the book because it's a different experience, because sometimes the movie purposely has a different ending.
And also there's times where there's certain things that you can't see inside a character's head, so they have to find a way to explain that to you. I'm really, really, we've already covered this project, Hail Mary. I'm really looking forward to the movie coming out. I made the husband. He's listening to the audiobook of it. I
saw a preview. It is, who is it? I can't think of the actor. I just saw like
Gosling.
a picture. Yes, Gosling.
Yes.
One of the Trinity of Ryans.
Right. The Chris's. The Chris is a Trinity.
Chris, yeah.
We did go off on a tangent of Ryans at some point.
Tangent of Ryans. Triad of Ryans. Trinity of Chris's.
Yeah. But I'm really hoping, because it's really well done, but it's a lot of technical sciencey stuff. So I want to know how they're going to approach that. Like, you can't just like say it. You're going to have to like show it. So I just hope that it's as good, because it was one of my favorite books of last year.
Well, do you feel like The Martian was well done, the movie?
Well, I watched The Martian, then I read the book, and I watched the movie like forever and ever ago.
So
and then I read the book more recently. Yeah. So I didn't do it in that order. But I'm like that person who, with like the Harry Potter and the Lord of the Rings. Well, Lord of the Rings was pretty darn accurate. Don't get me started on The Hobbit.
Don't worry, I won't.
Hobbit, I'm going to give you my little quick 2-minute spiel. The Hobbit was my entry into fantasy. The way I read The Hobbit was, we had the book fair at school in 7th grade.
I can still smell the Scholastic Book Fair.
In 7th grade, and Stephen Ferrero, he had The Hobbit, and I had some other book. And he's like, I'm not sure if I want to read this one. Do you want to trade? And I traded.
And you traded him for Babysitter's Club, and you've never turned back.
And it was The Hobbit, and I read it, and it changed my life. But The Hobbit is a singular story. The Hobbit, at the time, they do not know the bigger world of going on in Lord of the Rings, right? So the Lord of the Rings movies were excellent, well done.
Is Aragon a thing?
That's a different book series, yeah.
But it's part of it.
No. Oh, maybe you're thinking of the character Aragorn, maybe?
Maybe, who knows?
But they tried to then, after the success of Lord of the Rings, take the little story of The Hobbit and make it 3 movies and add in battle scenes and all these things that didn't happen. And
your passion for the Lord of the Rings is how I feel about the entire X-Men universe, and how I feel like all of these superhero movies gave up on the X-Men, but that is where all of the meat and potatoes are.
Yes.
There's so much there that you can go into.
Yeah, I agree.
And honestly, what I think part of it is, which I agree, is that I think they're really adamant about keeping some of the original stars. And so they need to get like those folks signed on again.
Right.
But I've heard that James Marsden and Halle Berry and Sir Patrick Stewart are on board. So I'm like, what you waiting for?
Yeah. No, the X-Men, I really enjoyed the X-Men. I agree. Anyway, sorry. Tangent. I don't know. I don't know where we are, where we came from, where we're going.
We went to the book fair. You got caught up in Lord of the Rings. I was smelling the scent of books in my mind.
I can smell the scent of books.
Yeah.
I got a shirt in my Secret Santa exchange at work. And it says, I'm booked. And it has a picture of
So you're going to wear that to BookCon?
I am, as long as the weather permitting, because it's a sweatshirt, but it's a very light sweatshirt. So I think we'll be good. I think it'll be appropriate. Yes.
I bought a new book bag for BookCon to put all the books that I'm going to buy
I do have a new backpack from Lululemon that was on clearance that I bought for myself and made my husband give me for Christmas as well.
Nice.
I was like, it's on clearance. Click. Yeah. Give this to me.
There you go. That sounds good. Mine was also on clearance. So look at that. Yeah. Treating ourselves.
Oh my goodness. So what do you have for me today?
So what I have for you is a throwback. It's an oldie but a goodie. And so I'm going to start off with my drink.
Yes.
Which is not a spoiler. It's not a spoiler.
Okay.
Which is shocking for me.
Shocking. Yes.
I just need to find, where is my drink recipe? Where's my drink recipe? Where'd it go? It's called Snake on the Water. I know that.
Okay.
And I can't find it.
I actually once saw a snake in a lake, and that was not pleasant.
Snake in a lake is not snake on the water. But I like how you were telling that story to give me time to find my recipe, which worked because now I have my recipe. So the name of my drink is Snake on the Water, which comes from simplyrecipes.com. And it says, my snake on the water cocktail is ranch water's kissing cousin.
I don't know what ranch water is.
So ranch water is pretty much just, as far as I know, it's just tequila and club soda.
Okay.
So this is kind of like sort of a Negroni, but not really. I don't like Negronis, so we'll see how I feel about it. But Snake on the Water is 1.5 ounces of Blanco tequila, 3/4 of an ounce of Campari, club soda, and an orange sliced for garnish. So that's what I've got here.
Okay, so it's like a tequila Campari. Got it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I could see how it would taste similar to a Negroni, and I don't like Negronis, so.
So, haven't you used Campari in some other drinks?
I have.
So, what don't you like about Negronis?
They're too strong. I need like something like sweeter or fruitier. They're and that's what this is. Like, it's not bad. It's just I like a little hint of sweetness in it.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the name of my drink, Snake on the Water. So today I'm going to talk about a 1948 film.
We're really taking it back.
We're taking it back.
This is the oldest we've been until I do the 420 episode, I think, because that one might be older.
Yeah, that might be, or it's around the same time.
Uh-huh.
But this was very purposeful. I'm going to be talking about a movie called The Snake Pit.
I've heard of it, don't know anything about it.
So, and that's why I'm talking about it, because I think it's something that a lot of people have referenced.
Yes.
In terms of calling asylums snake pits.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of where that whole title comes from and that reference. And this movie in and of itself is very important because it really historically changed the public's view of mental health asylums or mental asylums and what happens there, and change their idea on what therapies can be helpful for people. So it really is kind of a groundbreaking movie. I also bring it up because our girl, who's the lead, is Olivia de Havilland, which you may know from the movie that you are named after.
From Gone with the Wind.
Yes, she plays the lead character in Gone with the Wind. which I've never seen, so I couldn't tell you what her name is.
I have.
It's a famous name, though.
No, O'Hara.
No, her name is Olivia de Havilland. The actress's name is. She is plays. You okay?
Yeah, sorry.
You gasped, and I'm like, what happened? What happened? Are you okay? She plays somebody
Maureen
important.
O'Hara isn't. I'm confusing things.
Maureen O'Hara is the mother.
No, Scarlett O'Hara. Sorry.
There you go.
Vivian Leigh plays her. Olivia de Havilland plays Melanie
Somebody
Hamilton.
in the movie.
Somebody else.
Yeah. She plays somebody.
Because I'm like, no, Vivian Leigh, Scarlett O'Hara. Okay. Yes.
So she was a very famous actress. If you saw her face, you've definitely seen her in a lot of things. She was definitely a very big actress of that time. Her career started in 1935 and spanned until 1988.
Oh, wow.
And she died in 2020 at the age of 104.
Oh, wow.
So she was the oldest living and earliest surviving Academy Award winner. Yes. Very glamorous looking lady.
I love that old Hollywood.
Yes, me too. I just love how they all talked like this all the time. They all talked like this, and their voices were so smooth, and their hair was so glossy. None of them were being like, yeah, dog. Like that didn't happen back then. But she essentially came from kind of Hollywood royalty. Her parents and her sister and cousins were also very famous in a lot of entertainment and things like that. So I don't need to go like super into her. I was just kind of like throwing that out as like somebody from like a movie you would have heard of before or known. But she plays the lead character in this movie. And it was one of her earlier films because like I said, her acting career started in 1935. So this was, as I said before, 1940 something that closed it. 1948. There we go. So it was really one of the very first films to explore mental illness and treatment at the time. So I've got a lot of notes. I probably don't need to reference all of them. And there's a lot of website links because there's a lot of stuff on the movie and its impact on how the way society viewed mental health. So there'll be a lot of stuff in the show notes, but I'm not going to cover all of it. So the movie opens. I honestly feel like this movie is a good watch, like even today, because like from the first scene, it's intriguing. You're like, wait, what the fuck? What is happening? What is going on? I want to know more. What's wrong with this lady? What is up? So it opens. It's in black and white. For those of you who prefer your pictures colorized, this is not one of them. Doesn't need to be. Doesn't really. I don't feel like it would add or change anything to the movie itself. So it opens to a woman named Virginia Cunningham, and she's sitting on a bench watching the birds. And so you think she's just in the park, just hanging out, waiting for somebody or whatever. And then you start to hear voices that you assume are people sitting next to her talking to her, but they are not. They are voices in her head.
Got it.
And so she starts essentially responding to those voices out loud and then also talking to herself internally about the confusion she has about these voices. And so we come to find out very, very quickly, like literally like 2 lines into the movie, that she doesn't know where she is or why she is there. And she doesn't know the people around her. She's essentially kind of like waking to consciousness of like, what's up? Like, why am I here? What's going on? And she's looking around and she sees like the tree and the birds that were in the tree. And then as she looks around, she's in a fenced in area. They are outside and she is in kind of like the rec yard of a state psychiatric hospital. And so she looks up and she sees these big kind of like terrace type areas, but they're all barred. And so she's like, oh, like, why are all those people in a zoo? And like, she's still having this whole like internal monologue, like, this is weird. Like, there's all these people in a zoo. And then the nurses come over and start lining up. They're like, come on, Virginia, we got to go. It's time to go back in. And she's like, what? So disoriented, she's following the rules because she's, supposedly she's a very nice lady. And so she goes along with it and she goes inside. And she finds out very quickly that talking to the staff and to the other patients is against the rules.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, we come to find out later, this one nurse is kind of a bitch, and that's kind of who's telling her, like, oh, Virginia, it's against the rules to talk to people, where it's not really. It's just like, I guess maybe when they're like transferring in and out, they're supposed to be quiet or whatever. So we quickly come to find out that this is specifically a female ward for the mentally insane this time is what they were called. And a lot of the women very quickly, as you're like watching the show, especially with the 2026 view, some of the women are elderly, may have dementia. Many of them seem like they may have some sort of intellectual disability or some other kind of developmental disorders. And some of the women very clearly are suffering from like postpartum psychosis or postpartum depression, because there's many women who are talking about their babies or carrying around things as if they are babies and kind of have a delusion or some sort of obsession with babies and children. So we're kind of following Virginia just as confused as she is about what the fuck's going on. So pretty quickly on, we start to fill in the blanks where we learn that she is married. Her husband, Robert, comes to visit her, and she says she doesn't have a husband. She doesn't recognize this man. She don't know who he is. That's not her husband. And we find out that she was an aspiring writer. And at some point, there was some sort of tragic break with reality, and she had to be hospitalized. So we come to find out that she rushed into this wedding, and that might be a little bit why she doesn't necessarily recognize this guy. But like, it's not like she just met him. Like, they have been married and together for a notable amount of time. So she should recognize this person. She also doesn't recognize any of the doctors or the nurses. She thinks this one nurse hates her, but it's clear, like from scene to scene, this nurse is just overworked. Like, this nurse doesn't have anything against her or the other patients. She's just, one nurse has to manage 25 women who are like off the wall.
Right.
And so again, keeping in mind, this is the 1940s. Right. So at this point, a mental asylum was really just four walls, very little furniture, if any, and women wandering around in various states of undress or dress, some of them in hospital gowns, some of them in regular clothing, and really no true treatment that we're seeing.
Right. Nothing therapeutic, just existing.
Some
housed.
Patients, mostly being warehoused. But some women, you do see some treatments. We do see some hydrotherapy we talked about before, that's putting them in baths of varying temperatures for long amounts of time. And we do come through the course of the movie to find out that Virginia is having like formal psychotherapy, like meeting with a psychiatrist and talking and exploring her history, more of the kind of Freudian type of psychotherapy, talking about relationships with men and her father and blah, blah, blah. But some women are getting some treatment, but it's very clear that not every single woman there is getting this level of treatment that Virginia is. And what I think in retrospect of looking at this whole thing is, because Virginia's husband was very involved in her care, would visit, things like that, I think she was probably getting better quality of care because of that. I think also because she seems to be a bit more intelligent and cooperative than some of the other women. That's probably why she was also getting a better quality of care. Yeah. So I'm going to take this point to pause and say that this movie was based on a book written by Mary Jane Ward, which is about her true life experience in a mental health hospital.
Okay. So
Mary Jane Ward was born in Fairmont, Indiana in 1905, and she was a celebrated American novelist whose semi-autobiographical book, The Snake Pit, was made into the Oscar award-winning film. So her background is that there's a lot of details about her that have nothing to do with the book. So I'm just trying to skim through it. But essentially she had a case of her, I'll put it this way. Her therapist diagnosed her with catatonic schizophrenia. I don't know if that's necessarily what we would call it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking from the current lens, it sounds a little bit more like maybe a manic episode. But either way, in this episode that she was having, she started speaking out on the street about political stuff that wasn't necessarily accepted at the time. And somehow that jumped to her thinking that she had tuberculosis. So then she was hiding in her kitchen and asked her husband to lock her down. So I'm like, none of this is catatonic or schizophrenic, honestly.
It could be paranoia. And
could be a little bit paranoid, but it does sound like kind of a manic break because, and I'll kind of circle back to it, she was a very creative, prolific writer. So that kind of aligns more with that, which I will be covering bipolar and creativity in a future episode. But either way, she was going through it. And so her husband took her to Bellevue. So for those who don't know, Bellevue is a hospital. It is a full medical hospital. Right. It is most famously known for its psychiatric ward in New York. And it's quite a large psychiatric ward, not always a great place to go, but that was her first place. And then from there, she was transferred to Rockland State Hospital. And at that point, she was mute, incontinent, and alternated between catatonia and aggression. So that seems a little bit more like this catatonic schizophrenia that the original diagnosis came up from.
Right.
And then over the next few years, She was in and out of hospitals, in and out of treatment. And that is when she wrote the book, The Snake Pit. So it was literally in the midst of this psychotic break.
So for her to be able to organize enough to do that, that's pretty interesting.
Which, again, that makes me kind of lean more towards bipolar, possibly.
Because it's more organized, yeah.
Yeah. So she wrote this book, and I'm going to hop back to the book. So one of the main characters in the book/movie, because they are very close, is Dr. Kick. So Dr. Kick is a psychiatrist who works with her, and he's very, very invested in her. And there's at one point where he kind of goes up against this board of other doctors who are essentially like, just get rid of her. Like, let her out of here. She's fine. Like, we don't care. But he really advocates to keep her there and work through her treatment because he feels like she can make a breakthrough. So Dr. Kick is actually based loosely on her psychiatrist who treated her in Rockland, who is called Gerard Chiralzi. There's a CHRZ. I can't even start that word. It ends in Owski.
I think it's going to be a CHRZ is a Trzowski or Whatever.
So Trzanowski.
There we go.
Yeah.
You got it.
Based on him. And then he had studied under a very famous psychiatrist named Frieda Fromm-Reichmann. Have you heard of her before? Like, there's so many
familiar-ish sounding.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like psychology names that I know that I forget that other people don't know. But she was essentially kind of like a contemporary of Freud.
Okay.
And she came to the US during World War II seeking asylum, but she was really a pioneer for psychology and the treatment of schizophrenia in women specifically. So basically, she was kind of like pulling from these people who she received treatment from to shape this character named Dr. Kick. And then she said that she called her actual doctor, Dr. Kick, because she couldn't pronounce his last name.
Okay.
Much like me. Can't pronounce his last name. So
that's
Dr.
good.
Yeah. So much like in her real life, in the movie, Dr. Kick definitely takes a very Freudian type of approach to her difficulties, which I'll get into in a minute. Because honestly, it's pretty fascinating the way they do it in the movie. I don't know how true to her real life experience it was, but the way they tie it together is like classic Freudian psychotherapy about kind of, wow, I just blanked on the name. I'm such a bad psychologist. When the daughter is jealous of the mother because she wants to sleep with the father. There you go. Yes, the Electra complex. Yes. So back to the movie. So she meets her husband. She's like, who the F is you? I don't know who you are. You seem pretty cool and nice. You're kind of handsome, whatever. So through these kind of series of flashbacks in the movie, you come to learn that their relationship's relatively new. They'd gotten married. And then essentially like almost, I think it's like on their honeymoon, she starts freaking out and like acting really weird. And this dude's like, I just married this girl. Like, what? But he does like really truly like care for her. So he makes sure, that she goes to this hospital and gets help and visits her often. And his goal is really to bring her home. So we learn at this point that she went into the hospital in May. And at the point where we're meeting her in that first scene on the park bench, it's been a full year later.
Okay.
So she's been in this hospital essentially catatonic for almost a year before she even comes to reality of what's going on and can really truly participate in her therapy. So what she comes to find out is what got her into the hospital is that she would get really upset for no reason. She often complained of headaches. She had erratic behavior, mood swings, paranoia, was hearing voices in addition to her own conscience. So she did understand like some of these thoughts were her own, but then she was hearing additional thoughts, which was really upsetting her. Yeah. And so
the headaches make me wonder if there was something actually organic going on, but we didn't have scans back then for things like that. We didn't have CAT scan or MRI. So.
Exactly. And honestly, they don't talk too much about the headaches other than that was kind of, I feel like that was a little bit for theatrical effect because she was like, oh, I have such a headache. And then it was like weird behavior. So I feel like it was a little pumped up. Yeah. Although if in real life she was having that, yes, she would definitely want to rule out any sort of organic cause. So like I was saying.
Just a random side note, sorry.
Of course.
Youngest child was reading ingredients on something and then needed the definition of the word organic and then trying to ask ALEXA about the definition of organic. And then there's so many different definitions of organic because it could mean food. It can mean anything carbon-based. It could mean something that comes up naturally. It could mean, and it was like, and then she kept asking me and I'm like, there's too much information. Sorry. But yes, the word organic, we use it like just easily in different circumstances, but to a child.
Yes. So organic in this context means that there's something else going on, like a physical reason for this. So it could be like a brain tumor, it could be seizures, that kind of stuff.
Don't ask Alexa though.
I mean, she'll give you some information. We just don't know if it's the right information. Same thing with AI. I know you love chat.
Yeah, but no, not for certain things. Absolutely not.
Chat may not know what's up.
Nope.
He can make you a real
Sorry.
good drink, but he might not know if the drink is organic. So as I was saying before, the hospital is overcrowded. And so this kind of release board that they develop is trying to lessen the load on the staff by releasing patients who are less ill. Now, they are very clear that some of these patients that they're releasing are not fine, but they're like, well, they don't need to be here. Like, send them home, like their husband, brother, family, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
So at this point, and it's unclear if it's just Virginia, because a lot of it is really focused on her perception and her experiences of the hospital, but she's not allowed to have matches or light her own cigarettes or smoke in group areas. But other people are. And I feel like what we've heard, a lot of the stereotypical stuff about those old time mental hospitals, is that all they were doing was standing around smoking.
Yeah.
No, I know, like, a lot of times they would have to have the nurses light their cigarettes or whatever.
Right.
There's this very specific reference to, like, Virginia's not allowed to have cigarettes. Because at one point there's a little dance where they bring all over the men from the mental hospital and have them have a dance together. And you can imagine how that was amusing.
Okay.
But she basically, like, steals some cigarettes from somebody else and then gives them to this one girl who she really likes and has kind of like befriended, and gives her friend a smoke. So there's a lot of hijinks, lots of things go on. But we find out that Virginia is very triggered. These are my notes from a while ago, so bear with me. Triggered by knives and love.
Okay. Knives and love.
And this is what I put. May 12th, completely unconscious, rejection of love, shaking a finger, cigar in her face.
I love these cryptic notes that you wrote to yourself.
But the funny thing is the minute I read them out loud, I remember exactly what it's a reference to.
See?
So the date, May 12th, is very triggering for her, and she doesn't know why. And she starts to get triggered when she has this memory of, I think it's like one of the doctors in like the release board smoking a cigar and is like, listen, young lady, you have to shape up or something. And then that triggers her in that way. And then she has like a flashback.
And knives and love.
Yes. So little bit by little bit, we kind of put together Virginia's whole story. So walk with me on this little magical journey, because that's how it comes up in the story.
Okay.
In the movie. So Gordon, we find out, is Virginia's ex-boyfriend.
Okay.
And Virginia really wasn't like feeling Gordon, but he had money and he was good looking enough. And so she was like, yeah, I guess I'll marry this dude. So he's essentially like driving her somewhere and talking about, oh, we're going to get married and this and this and this. And she gets like really overwhelmed and really upset and just turns to him as he's driving and is like, no, we're not getting married. I don't want to be with you. They immediately get in a car accident and he dies.
Okay.
So obviously Virginia thinks it's her fault.
Right.
It ain't that girl's fault.
A little traumatic though.
Yeah. But yes, so there's some trauma about love there. And so this is where I made a note, trauma versus schizophrenia. Like, that sounds more like trauma to me for that to be a trigger for her, because she was already unsure about it. And you can kind of tell that Virginia is very like meek and doesn't really speak up for herself. So this was a time where she like spoke up about what she wanted and how she felt. And then this dude died.
It went bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it went real bad. It is not her fault at all. Like, I believe, if I'm remembering the scene correctly, it's like a rainy, stormy night. And like, I think something like falls in the road and he swerves. Like, it's a true accident. It has nothing to do with her. But now in her head, she's associated where, if I'm not loving someone or if I'm not doing this right, someone's going to die. So that's our first foray into Virginia's troubled history.
Yeah.
Then we find out this girl killed her daddy too.
Wow. Okay. That's a jump. Okay. Well, that might be her fault.
She didn't really kill her daddy.
Okay.
But she thinks she killed her daddy. So essentially there's this flashback to when she's little, maybe about 5 or 6 at most. And there's a lot of allusions to her mother having pretty like severe prenatal anxiety. She was sick and nervous, and she was pregnant with her sibling. She was pregnant with another child. They never really allude to this other child later on. So I don't know what happened with that other kid, but whatever. So mom's pregnant. She's a hot mess. Also, in this flashback, Virginia's like 5. Mom looks like she's 65. So maybe she shouldn't have been pregnant to begin with. Like, maybe that's part of the problem. I don't know. Also, daddy in this flash...
People also look older back then. So like 16-year-olds look like they were 25 and like 40-year-olds look like they were 65.
Well, then why did daddy look 35?
Oh, I don't know.
Because dad was young and could get it. Okay. And mom was real old and pregnant and kind of crazy. Okay. So then that's also like, ooh, is there a genetic link? If mom had mental health issues, is that where Virginia's mental health issues come from? So essentially, mom is sick and nervous, and they allude to the mother being like her sister Annie, who they said was obstinate. What that means to me is she was a woman who didn't want to be told what to do by a man.
Yep, absolute.
Equals mental health problems, apparently, in 1940.
Hysteria.
Yeah. Now, this is the best part of the whole movie. And this gives you a mental picture of why I said Mom was real old. Do you know who Mom is played by? Mrs. Howell from Gilligan's Island.
Okay.
That's the mother.
Okay.
And she don't look that much younger than when she played Mrs. Howell.
But wait, when was Gilligan's Island? In the
70s? Yeah, like 60s, 70s. But she looks exactly the same.
She looks exactly the same.
Exactly the same. So that's why I said Mom is old, because she's Mrs.
Maybe you're just thinking of Mrs. Howell.
She looks exactly like when she came on screen, I'm like, that's Mrs. Howell. Like there was no mistaking it. Yeah. She just didn't have the snooty accent and all the jewels.
Right.
And there was no Gilligan. Anyway.
We get it.
So basically what happened is her dad goes away and travels a lot. And so he's kind of back and forth, but he's concerned about the mother because she's pregnant and crazy. And so Virginia's being a little kid and having a tantrum or whatever. And so her dad comes back and he brought her a doll to try to calm her down and make her feel good. And then something happens and she gets in trouble and she gets sent to her room and she gets real mad and she breaks the doll that dad gave her. And then dad goes off to work and never returns home because he dies.
Oh, so it's like voodoo doll type thing.
She broke the doll and then dad died.
Oh.
But then we find out that dad died from uremia.
That's just like kidney failure. That's just another it's a weird word for kidney failure.
Right. So I'm like, well, was he sick and we didn't know it? Or like,
doesn't really make sense.
Exactly. It doesn't make sense. And they really only like mention like that, like in passing, like, oh yeah, dad died from uremia. And you're like, what? Okay. Thought he died because she broke him in half because he's a doll. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little too literal here.
Yeah.
So then in pure like Cinderella wicked stepsister style, Mom remarries.
Of course.
And doesn't like Virginia anymore because she reminds her of her father. So again, trauma or schizophrenia?
You can't, there's a lot. Yeah.
So that's kind of, we find out through the course of her talk therapy with Dr. Kick that's kind of where all of these reactions are coming from. And so now that she knows where those things came from, aka attachment theory, the Freudian or Jungian repression of those feelings, the anger towards father, and then how you idealize your first boyfriend as like another father, substitute father. And then because those two relationships ended poorly, now that Virginia was in this new relationship, that caused this break.
Okay. I see that.
So it's nicely laid out. Is that exactly how things happen in real life? No, but that is like as per kind of the cute little neat cut and dry Freudian theory. And they map it out pretty well in the movie. So, you kind of follow that along. So we find some of the other treatment other than talk therapy that she's doing with Dr. Kick is to get some shock therapy, because who didn't back then? The psychoanalysis that we talked about. They get DT. Do you know what DT might be? So if we think of OT as occupational therapy, DT was dressing therapy.
Where you dress up real cute and you're like, I feel good.
Yeah.
I look cute. Dressing therapy.
And I think
shopping therapy, people.
True. Retail therapy. I think it was the way that they show it. It's a very brief scene. I think it was for maybe some more of the well-to-do women to try to get them to dress the part of returning back to society, maybe.
Okay. I mean, I would think that that's a form. Nowadays, we consider that form of occupational therapy, sort of,
right.
Maybe,
But also, like, she wasn't having any fine motor or buttoning, zippering issues. So.
Right. Yeah.
That's really what OT is when they're doing dressing therapy. That's what OT is looking at.
Right.
More of the functional parts of it. And they even joke about it, like being dressing therapy. There is some hypnosis, which I'll be covering in a future episode.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited for that.
Already planned, girl. I have episodes out till August. We good. I know.
I just threw 2 ideas on there at least.
Yes. And then the use of sodium amytal or sodium pentothal, which we've talked about before. Do you recall what that is?
Truth serum.
Truth serum. It's not really truth serum. It just lowers inhibition. So you hope that people will be more honest. I think it's kind of tricky for Virginia's case because she wasn't knowingly withholding anything.
Right.
So I guess maybe it's more of like a chemical hypnosis if you're thinking about it that way.
Yeah, to pull out the subconscious sort of. Yeah.
But they also did, as I said before, hydrotherapy, juice fasting, force feeding, straitjackets, all that fun stuff. Virginia didn't necessarily get all these therapies. These are just therapies that are shown in the movie. But other things that we see are just the overcrowded wards, a lot of people just standing or pacing for hours. There's this one scene that is hilarious where this really evil, nasty nurse who gets hers in the end, so we'll loop back to her. They have this big, giant kind of like, it's supposed to be like a living room type area, but there's like 2 rocking chairs and like really not much else. So it's like 40 women like pacing around this room. And I guess their budget allowed them to buy a new rug. So they put the new rug down, but no one is allowed to stand on it.
Okay. You just look at it. It's real pretty.
And so anytime somebody goes near the rug, the nurse like yells at them. And Virginia like, bitch, I'm going to stand on the rug. Like, a rug is for standing on. I'm going to stand on the rug.
This is crazy.
Yeah. She gets real spicy real quick, especially like the more connected to herself she gets, she's pushing back. She's like, not today. So basically what happens is Virginia makes friends with this other girl whose name I'm blanking on, Hester. Hester is this very beautiful ingenue type girl who is clearly like catatonic. Doesn't speak, just like stares, sometimes gets a little aggressive, but you never hear her voice. You never really see her do much. But Virginia kind of takes Hester under her wing and is like, she's my girl. I'm going to look out for her. She's okay. So Hester goes and sits down cross-legged on the rug, and the nurse like grabs her by her hair, and Virginia like, oh no, you didn't. You didn't touch my girl. So there's a whole thing and there's problems, but basically nobody gets to sit or stand on the rug. And then we come to learn through this scene, because then, you know, one lady's yelling and then it kind of like sets off like,
of course,
a cacophony of insanity.
Yeah.
So now everybody's freaking out. We find out that each ward only has one doctor. And so this ward has at least 40 people.
Wow.
And we come to find out, I forget the numbers, I might have it in my notes, that there's multiple wards. There's probably like 13 or 14 wards.
Oh, wow.
And they're based on severity. So at this point, we're kind of like in the mid-range ward. So, and as she gets better, you know, Virginia moves up to the better wards. But she does kind of get some sassy with people. She makes a lot of social commentary. She says she likes to speak against regimentation, and that she's going to write a petition, and that she doesn't think that the patients are being treated well. And she doesn't like being considered that she's a patient. She's like, well, don't you know, I'm like getting healthy. I'm better.
Right.
And trying to like, not saying that she's not like them, but trying to like speak up for them because she has more.
It sounds like at baseline she was probably more well spoken because she was a writer. So she was intelligent, so she could advocate a little bit more.
So as she starts to get better, she does a lot more of that. But there's this other scene that's hilarious. So it's dinner time, and they all have like their own little tables where they sit down, and it's kind of like communal, like family style eating. So they plop down a bowl in the middle, and everybody's got to share. And this one woman, I think this is like the only scene she's in, but she's freaking hilarious. So, you know, she's spooning out the bowls and she's passing it around, and she sees Virginia come over. She's like, come on, girl, sit down, you know, sit with us. And she's like, oh, save some food for Virginia. Ain't nobody saved Virginia no food. But she's like, save some for Virginia. Save some for Virginia. Ain't nobody saved that girl any food. And she's like, oh, that's fine. It's like gross anyway. I'm fine. But it's just like so cute to see that, like, despite like the severity of some of these women's mental illness, they are like trying to look out for each other and like trying to be kind to each other, because they're not getting that from a lot of the staff.
Yeah.
And so they also talk about how Virginia during her stay loses a lot of weight. Maybe it's because nobody saved some for Virginia. I don't know. But they said that she did lose weight. I also wonder too, like what sort of treatments was she getting prior to this that maybe could lead to weight gain? We know a lot of certain medications, especially some of those really early generation, first generation antipsychotics could lead to weight gain. So I don't know what she was on, but they basically say like she's getting healthier over her time. She also makes this really interesting comment that it's really hard to tell the patients from the visitors sometimes.
Okay.
And so I think that's really interesting, because there's a couple of scenes where we see, you know, husbands, brothers, sisters, whoever coming to visit people, and they're all a little quirky too. So it's like
your genetic basis right there.
Well, on a genetic basis, but also like, what are we calling mental illness versus what
just personality?
Yeah, what is just someone's personality?
Right.
So I think it's like a really interesting observation from her. And, you know, she's the hero of the story. We're following her. So for her to even come to that realization of like, I can't tell this person from this person, and I'm on the other side. I'm a patient. So how are these nurses and doctors telling us, you know, who's
what? Right.
Yeah. Which that goes into a book and a story that I've referenced many times before, but there was an experiment where psychology students checked themselves into psych wards pretending to be schizophrenic. And then the minute they were admitted, they dropped all of their symptoms. And many of them were stuck there for quite some time.
Wow. Even though they improved, we'll say.
Yeah, exactly. So telling crazy from not crazy is not always so easy once you're labeled. And I think that's really kind of the take home point from both that study, but also this comment that Virginia is making. So the difference between the wards, is this where I have how many wards there are? I want to say there's 33 wards.
Wow.
Yeah. So as I said, varies, ward 1, which is the best ward. There's private rooms. They all have seating and beds. There's activities like arts and crafts, the piano, writing therapy. They're allowed to smoke. They get soap to wash themselves. Yeah. So, ward 1 is the best ward, and Virginia does work her way up there.
Okay.
But then she kind of has a backslide, and a lot of stuff happens. Virginia ends up in ward 33.
Wow. Isn't there a movie with something like you have to get to the top of the building, the tower?
Probably.
Something like that. It feels like she literally slid all the way down and has to climb back up.
Well, and it's ironic that you say that because ward 33 essentially looks like a basement. Okay. So it really is kind of like being from the top, sliding all the way down. I know that there is this one part, I don't, because it's been a while since I watched the movie and took these notes, but I know that there's one part where she gets in trouble with one of the nurses for being mouthy, and then she locks herself into a bathroom. And then they find like a razor or something in the bathroom, assuming that she was going to do something, but she actually wasn't. So that's kind of how she gets sent to Ward 33. And Ward 33 is truly the snake pit that we're talking about. And so this is when there's nonstop talking, nonsense, pacing, agitation. People are dancing and singing. There's people laying on the floor. People are naked. Like, it's overcrowded. And this is where we come to learn the snake pit. And so essentially there's this old parable that when people got to a certain level of insanity that you could not return from, the lore is that they were thrown into pits of snakes because they wouldn't know any differently. Oh. And so that was kind of how we got this colloquialism of calling mental hospital snake pits, because if people were so far gone, they wouldn't know any different.
Yeah.
But I think that's also more of kind of that idea of that was treatment.
Right.
Just throw them in that room, put them all together. They're not going to know the difference.
That's sad.
Yeah, it's really sad. And even the way that they go about it is Virginia's in the middle of the snake pit, and you're kind of looking down and it looks like a basement, and she's surrounded by all this chaos, and there's so many people. It's actually so beautifully artistically done that at one point all this writhing actually looks like snakes when it's just people moving around. It's a really, really good movie. Like I said, even though it's from 1945, it's a good movie that I think people should watch now. So one fun thing that we find out is that nurse I was talking about before, that was real nasty, Nurse Cecilia Summerfield, she is in the snake pit at the end as a patient.
Oh,
yeah. So, and they don't really go too much into it, but essentially you find out that it's alluded to that it's the pressures of being overworked, underpaid, dealing with all this stuff causes her to snap as well. But now she's in the snake pit, still acting like a nurse, trying to get all these other crazy ladies to listen to her. And they're laughing at her, ignoring her. And Virginia's still got her faculties, even though she's in the snake pit. So she's like, what Nurse Summerfield doing up in here? I thought she got a new job somewhere else. No, she got sent to the snake pit herself.
Wow.
So I think that too also shows, no one was immune to this type of treatment.
Absolutely.
She was one of the head nurses, and all the other nurses paid attention to her. Yeah. There's also this one nurse, Nurse Davis. She's more of the nice nurse, the good side of things, where she gave Virginia a little toy doll to take care of, to help her heal, and helped her make clothes for it and everything. And then so over time, they don't say exactly how much time it takes, but Virginia says that being in Ward 33 shocked her back into sanity. It kind of got everything rid of her. I don't know about that, but that's what Virginia says. And so she eventually works her way back, and she's in Ward 1, and it's her last day, and her husband's there to pick her up, and she gets to go home, and she's about to leave. And Hester comes running out of nowhere, never said a word this whole damn movie. And she says, I love you, Virginia.
Oh.
And gives her a hug before she leaves.
So sweet.
Yeah. Yeah. And says goodbye to her. And then there's this weird part where Virginia's getting in the car with her husband, and she's like, yeah, I was in love with Dr. Kick, but I'm better now, so I don't love him no more. And
Those are
things
you keep inside.
Girl.
You don't say them out loud.
but also like, okay, so we're going to do all this real good Freudian psychotherapy, but we're not going to talk about our transference and our countertransference, because I think Dr. Kick had it in for Virginia, but we never talked about that, because he was paying way more attention to Virginia than he was his other patients. Right. So, and maybe that cigar was not just a cigar. Oh no.
Oh,
but
geez.
Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Sometimes it's not. That's an old psychology joke for those of you listening out there. So that's the snake pit. As I said, there's a lot of links to how this kind of changed the way that the public thought about mental health asylums, because there really wasn't any kind of like feature film or movie about this. Right. As I said before, it was nominated for an Oscar. I believe Olivia de Havilland won an Oscar for her portrayal of Virginia in this. It is a really good movie. As I said, there's some scenes that are just like, wow, this is amazing. So I think it's worth a watch if you have access to it. I think I found it on Prime. I didn't have to pay for it. I know that. But I did have to do a little bit of digging to find the snake pit. And then there's a really interesting article that I linked called The Uneasy Threshold, the Snake Pit, Shock Therapy, and Straightjacket as, I guess, like an allegory for female aspirations. I am read the whole article, I'm being honest with you. But I think it kind of talks about how it's kind of this allegory to being like tied up and not being able to voice yourself, and then breaking out of that and breaking free and all of that stuff. So that's that article. And then there's a really interesting article titled When a Novel Changes a Social System. And it talks about how the snake pit, the novel, and then the movie really did change the U.S. state psychiatric hospital system and treatment, because now people are seeing this movie. They're like, this can't be real. This can't be real life. And they're like, oh, wait, this is how it is. And so people started to advocate more and talk about what treatment should be, and essentially led to kind of the abandonment of that scary snake pit type idea and more treatment and working on reducing overcrowding and not neglecting the treatment of folks who were in asylums at that time. So that's the snake pit.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the stuff you kind of sprinkled through, I feel like at some point we should go through like all the theories that were proposed over time, like the Freud, the Jung, all the different things, and like sort of what we've kept, what we've gotten rid of, what led to something else, because we learned all those in like that basic psychology class in high school or college or whatever. But I'd be interested to know like what threads of those sort of still exist or are built upon. I think that's interesting. The ego, the superego, all that stuff. And
well, I mean, Freudian psychotherapy is still psychodynamic psychotherapy, as it's called now, which is based on traditional Freudian psychotherapy, is still active. There is still a very active base of people who use that in their day-to-day treatment. That being said, that type of therapy always kind of has been geared towards more of those people who are more on an outpatient basis, who have more money, because those sessions aren't necessarily limited to an hour. They're not necessarily limited to once a week. And so it definitely is for a very certain specific demographic of people that most people are not either looking for that or have access to that. That being said, there is a lot of growth in that field that has made it more modernized and something that a lot of people can benefit from. I just don't know if it's I don't know if it's necessarily the type of therapy that most people are seeking for, but when they're looking for help with these sorts of things. And then I'm not quite sure, because I've been out of school for some time. I don't have all my research notes with me. I'm not quite sure if it really counts as an evidence-based therapy, which is typically what insurance companies pay for.
Interesting.
Which is a whole nother thing we could get into, evidence-based treatments, which I'm not anti-evidence-based treatment. I just think what we considered evidence-based is a very specific type of treatment, and that's not necessarily the treatment that may be effective for every single person.
Right. I mean, there's some subtleties. It's very different than prescribing a medication that's evidence-based versus therapy, which is can subjective. Be tailored to the individual, and someone might need a different approach that isn't quite exactly what's on the books, but there's an intuition piece to that. I think there's an art to it.
Definitely. And I mean, I do think, a lot of therapists now may consider themselves more eclectic, where they'll pull from different areas for what works for that patient. That's definitely the type of therapy I feel like I do, but I gravitate towards more cognitive behavioral therapy, that sort of thing. But I'm not anti-psychodynamic. Do I feel like I would be well-versed in sitting and doing that traditional laying on the couch psychodynamic psychotherapy? I don't know if I quite have enough training in that, but it's definitely something you can get out there. It's available.
Yeah.
So, and some people really enjoy that. Oh, the other thing I was going to say, a lot of people, like I said, have heard about the term snake pit, not necessarily knowing where it comes from. This is kind of where that reference is, but also another term that's heard a lot in mental health is bedlam, which I'll have to cover another time. It is loosely referring to an asylum in London that was very similar, overcrowded, very poor conditions, a lot of just kind of warehousing of people. And in Bedlam, a lot of times they were housing people who were not just mentally ill, but also criminals, people who had developmental disabilities, things like that.
Yeah. I mean, we've come a long way. We're not quite probably where we should be, but we've come a long way from just tossing everybody in there and hoping for the best.
We've come a long way, baby. Yep. Well, and honestly, part of it, at least in the US, is that whole deinstitutionalization move doesn't allow for that anymore. There are not places like that anymore for someone to go, even if that was something we wanted to do, which we don't want to do, but it's not part of what's available anymore.
The goal is to get you back into life.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a whole lot. I mean, at some point you had to cover the more modern psychiatric admission, system and what that entails and what a 3-day hold is and what safety, to yourself and others and danger to yourself and others, like just all these things. I think there's so much more you can cover.
There's so much more I can cover. I'm exhausted. I think finding representations of that in the media that are realistic is a little difficult, but definitely something I can look into.
Yeah.
Because I think like in the media, we're not seeing that whole intake crisis process a lot. We're just saying, okay, we're here.
Right.
We're in the hospital. Now what do we do?
Right.
Where the amount of people who go to crisis or who are having a mental health crisis that actually make it into the inpatient hospital setting, it's a very small percentage, which is either good or bad, depending on, what side of the fence you're on or what the individual is going through.
Right. Because now we have those community outreach type crisis things that you can call for your county or whatever. And someone will come to your house, a social worker or whatever. Like there's those programs.
Yeah. And really, I think the goal for most folks in any sort of crisis situation is to get them to agree to a voluntary hospitalization. Involuntary holds and involuntary hospitalizations is a very difficult and bureaucratic system.
It's a legal process.
It does not always work in the favor of the patient and their safety, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say about that. So that's all I got for today.
All right.
It was kind of heavy,
stuff.
not fun.
Well, it's heavy, but it was,
but
told through her eyes.
Yes. And I will say, I watched the movie recently. I still think it's a good movie. For given what it's about, I think it ages well because it shows what it was actually like in those experiences.
It sounds like it. Yeah. It sounds like it's a good representation of what it was.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a good watch just to see the crazy nurse end up in the crazy house.
I like that.
And to see Hester.
Yes.
Finally speak her words.
Sweet.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to Medical Media Mixer.
The perfect cocktail.
Cheers.
I did not like my drink.
I've moved on to water.
Quitters. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Medical Media Mixer podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps others find the show. Want to keep the conversation going? Follow us on social media. We're at Medical Media Mixer Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and on Pinterest, the Medical Media Mixer board.
If you'd like to support the show and help us grow, check us out on Patreon. Patreon.com/Medical Media Mixer Podcast. And on Buy Me a Coffee, buymeacoffee.com/Medical Media Mixer Podcast. If you have a topic idea, feedback, or just want to say hi, send us an email at medicalmediamixer@gmail.com. You can also stream all of our episodes and find more info on our website, medicalmediamixer.podbean.com. We're available on all major podcast platforms, so no matter where you listen, we're there. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep mixing medicine and media.